Sometimes finding motivation to get into the shop can be hard, so every little boost helps. Whether it's to brighten up your space or to remind your social media followers who they're looking at right now, a sign is a great way to show pride in what you do. Episode 3 in this Luthiers workshop build series. In the last video we made a Luthiers vise that works for any kind of woodworking application. This time I'm making a big logo for the wall and hacking the shop-vac to make it a lot cheaper to run and a lot easier to use. This episode is going to be really simple. The logo is just a piece of 6mm melamine hot glued to the wall. Now you know that, most of you can go off and make one. If you're like me though, and you like to chill out watching things getting made, stick around. Social media success means pretty pictures, so while I used to get away with making custom guitars in my old apartment, it was important to me to set up this new workshop and to dress it up nicely for photography and video. All brand recognition and set designing aside, I believe there is a subconscious dimension to signs like these, so when we're struggling a bit, which happens to the best of us, we're quietly reminded in the background of what our motivation is. I spent a lot of years on the road as a guitar tech in the past and worked for the Australian outfit Cole Clark Guitars. Both jobs were great for experience and I was proud of the work that I did, but I was always working under someone else's banner. So having my logo on the wall here makes me feel good. It's a reminder that I'm doing this for me, and it's also a reminder that if it all falls apart, then it's my responsibility. I think that creative people generally express themselves not only through their art, but through their workspaces too. Working in a space that isn't personalized doesn't feel as good as it does when we make it our own. So I express myself through the things I'm building in this series. My look is minimalist with a lot of warm acacia wood and white melamine. I'm inspired in equal parts by traditional wood shops as I am by ultra clean work areas like NASA and Lamborghini. Instead of buying all my jigs and templates, which is a perfectly valid way of doing things if you like, I make my own. That way I can make sure they all work the way I want them to, not the way someone who I've never met wants them to. If I'm looking a bit red-faced here, it was 46 degrees Celsius or 114 degrees Fahrenheit that day. It gets pretty hot here in Australia. So after I've rough cut around the letters to shave off some weight and started trimming to the line, I moved the operation inside. Now I can clean up the edges some more on the workbench. The melamine is very thin and even though it's surprisingly strong and flexible, you definitely don't want to push it. So having the bench to support the majority of the weight is a big help. If your logo is made up of single letters, you're onto a winner. Single letters are going to weigh a lot less than this monstrosity. So I've grabbed a Forstner bit for this, but you can use a hole saw, a regular drill bit if it's large enough like a 12mm, or even a knife to stab a hole in the letter. Because I don't want the bit to blast out the backside, I'm using a sacrificial plywood backing board. I'm doing this for all 3 letters that have a hole in them. See that glue caddy in the background? I'm making it in the next episode. Okay, so I'm drilling the last of the 3 holes, ready to jigsaw out the middles. Even though it's looking decidedly rough at this point, it's still exciting to see something I'd been thinking about for so long starting to come together. Once the letters are cut out, we're looking at this. The jigsaw leaves a pretty rough edge in places because of the MDF fraying as it hits the teeth. No problem, if you have a file, you're golden. I'm using my diamond razor files because I look for any excuse I can to use them. They leave a surface like 1,000 tiny block planes. They're definitely a tool you should think about if you want to work with wood. Once the edges are nice, I just shot some hot glue onto the letters and pressed them up against the wall for a minute. If your sign is large like mine, definitely get some help so it doesn't accidentally snap. Alright, this looks great, but we're not there yet. If you use a shop-vac, you'll know how quickly they can fill up and how annoying it is to have to buy bags all the time. I use my shop-vac solely for the CNC machine, which is why it's hidden away. The whole system is quiet enough that I can have a quiet conversation right in front of the machine while it's working. So here's what we want to do. Remove the bag from the shop-vac and lay it out flat. I'm measuring a thin piece of scrap pine. I want it to protrude past the sides of the bag by about 30 millimeters. I make my mark, then use a square to mark the full line. There's no need for this kind of accuracy here, it's just habit. I also want to split the pine in 2 pieces lengthwise, and for this I didn't measure at all. Because there's a little bevel on the bottom of my table saw fence, thin work pieces like this one can slip under it. So what I do is keep a piece of melamine behind the saw that I can clip on at times like these. Now we have 2 sticks, but as you'll remember we haven't cut them to length yet, so that happens next. I don't have a table saw sled for this new saw yet, so I'm cutting by hand. A super accurate sled build is coming up in a future episode though, so hang in there. The last component I'm using is a couple of bag clips which are made for sealing plastic bags in the kitchen, although you can use binder clips. I'm going to use one of those as well. What we're trying to do is to cut off the end of the bag, then reassemble it with our bits and pieces, so when it comes time to replace the bag, we can just open up the end and dump the contents. Then simply reassemble it after giving it a clean to get rid of leftover dust particles. I'm giving the bag a double fold just to keep the dust filters safe and sandwiching it between the 2 pieces of pine. Then I simply fold over the corners and clip them closed. I found it a bit fiddly this first time, but after leaving the clips on the bag until I had to empty it again, the corners automatically folded over and made it a lot easier the next time. You can see I snuck a binder clip in the middle there too. Now I can put the bag back into the shop-vac. After testing it, I found 0 dust leakage, which is great news for the filters. I'd like to thank you for joining me for these 2 quick projects and hope you'll join me again. In the next episode, I'll be making a glue caddy to keep all of your adhesives in the one place.